let's see what observations you have from the article, The Destruction of the First Temple. Riley, what stood out to you?
The high priest discovered.
Louder, please.
Sorry. That the high priest discovered the forgotten temple.
Well, I still can't hear you very well. There's noise coming from outside the window. There's noise in the hall. I'm going to close the door, but I think you can talk louder.
That the high priest discovered the long forgotten temple scroll of Deuteronomy.
Okay, so it's the high priest that discovered it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's something I had brought out to you.
I liked how, I thought it was really cool how Josiah had such an impact on the nation, and he was the youngest of ever.
Yeah,
You don't think people so young can have such an impact, but he can.
right. That's a good point. I don't know, do you ever feel that way? That you're too young to have an impact even in our school? It's not true, is it? I can give you an example of a class a number of years ago who, as sophomores, became the leaders of the school. Because the juniors and seniors just weren't doing it, and they were people that knew what they wanted academically, spiritually, and they became the ones that everyone looked to, even the juniors and seniors. And what are we told in that Paul wrote to Timothy? Don't let anyone look down on your youth. Now, he was older than you guys, but still, Josiah was 8 years old when he became king. Now, we don't know exactly when he started the process that brought spiritual awakening, but I don't think he waited until he's 50 because he lived that long. Okay, what else stood out to you, Bill?
I never knew that God prophesied that he would destroy the temple.
Yeah.
Didn't know that Josiah died because he disguised himself as a soldier and went into battle.
Yeah, you'd think, you don't understand why he did that, because who are they going to shoot for? They're going to shoot for the king. So he disguised himself, but ended up getting killed as a soldier. Yeah, interesting. What else?
How big do you think the armies were? Were they like,
Unless it tells us, I don't know.
because I don't think Judah wasn't that big, so I don't think it had that big of an army compared to Egypt. So
Yeah, you would think that it wouldn't be. Although Egypt is not as great at that point as it was earlier, but it's a large enough army to take all the way up to fight against the Babylonians to join Assyria. So unless it, and I don't remember whether it says anything about the size of the armies there or not. But unless it says, we don't really know. But it's good thinking on your part. Okay, what else? Anything else stand out to you? Luke?
That the one king in Judah decided not to close the gates, and Babylon came, so he thought they wouldn't destroy him if he didn't close the gates.
Yeah, that's interesting, huh? If I just open the gates, they'll be nice. Doesn't always work that way, does it?
Why did God let Josiah die? He was one of the better kings.
Yeah. In the providence of God and the sovereignty of God, and I'm not sure if he tells us, not that I remember, but number one, Josiah was acting foolishly by going out there against Necho. It was not his fight. And secondly, God was going to shortly bring an end to Judah. And that's not going to happen as long as Josiah is alive. So that was kind of the process of, okay, once Josiah dies, then God's going to start initiating the steps toward judgment. So that's just off the top of my head what I would say. There may be better answers. Good questions you guys are asking. Making me think. Any others? Any other points you thought were good? All right. So you should be, I'm giving you these articles because I don't necessarily want to take time in class to cover everything. And so it's a way for you to learn more about what's going on through the reading of an article. Yeah, Kate?
What does the word spurned mean?
Spurned? To turn away from something, or turn something away. How's it used there?
Says God's mercy was spurned.
So in other words, people didn't want to accept God's mercy. They acted like it was nothing. Usually the word's used in cases where a young man, says some sweet things to a young lady, and she doesn't really accept them. That's that she spurned him. So Israel did that to God, because Israel was considered the wife of God. And Israel, talking about the Israelite people, not just the northern kingdom. And they spurned God. They said, we really don't want what you have to offer. All right, anything else? All right, those are good comments and questions. All right, the first thing I want to do today is to look at the city of Babylon. We mentioned yesterday that the Judean captives were taken there by Nebuchadnezzar. Here is a map of the Babylonian Empire. You can see it extends all the way from the Persian Gulf. And here's the city of Babylon, all the way over this way. Now these names are present day names. There was no Iran, Iraq, and Turkey back then. But just to show you the extent of the territory that they conquered, all the way down into Egypt, up into Asia Minor, up to the Caspian Sea, the Black Sea. So they were in control of quite a large amount of territory. Now the city of Babylon itself was a wonder. It had double walls, and you can see here, there's a wall and then another wall. So in order to get through, you got to get through one wall, and that's not enough. Then you got to get through the next wall. And we saw something like that from Solomon too. If you remember the fortress gates that Solomon built, they had that double wall idea. So that was becoming something that was done if you wanted to defend your city. And then there's a moat, and I'm not sure whether this is out. This looks like outside the wall, so this might be the moat that's around it. Of course, there's a bridge for the people, but certainly an army trying to break into the city would have to get across this moat. The little bridge would be enough, and the Babylonians probably get rid of that before it came anyway. The city also had 100 bronze-plated gates with iron bars. So every one of these entrances had a gate that they could bring down with iron bars, which would have made it very difficult to break through as well. It was a planned city. As you can tell by looking at it, the streets are straight. There's a plan to it. Here's another look at the city of Babylon. Everything's in squares or rectangles, so it wasn't just haphazard like most cities are, where somebody builds a house and another house, and the streets are crooked and all that. It was planned out, and it's divided by the Euphrates River. You can't see it on this. Here, this is looking at basically the same picture we already saw, but the Euphrates River ran through the city. Now, what would be the purpose of that?
So if one half gets taken, you got the other half.
All right, it's interesting. Somebody else in the other class brought that up, and no one's ever said that before. So if they capture one side of the river, you've got the other side. I think they're hoping that it never gets to that point. If you've got these double walls and all that stuff, I mean, these walls were wide enough that several chariots could go side by side. I don't remember how many it is on top of the wall. So they're hoping never get to the point where anybody's able to get into the city. So why have a river? What would a river do for you? Bill?
Would it make it so they could stay prosperous inside the walls without having to leave? Because they have water, they got fish and stuff.
Okay,
like that.
and what advantage would that be if an enemy came?
If they're surrounded, they could stay in there longer.
Because remember, what have we seen in the past about when a country, an army comes to try to conquer a city? What do often? They surround it, right? They lay siege to it. Remember that? And we saw that Samaria was under siege for 30 months. Well, after a while, when you run out of water, you've got to give up because you can't live without water. So with the river coming into the city, underneath the walls, that gives them a water supply. And so somebody can lay siege outside the city, and you can say, doesn't bother me, we got water. That's all we need. and maybe even some fish in there to get some food. I don't know. And we're going to see how that's going to play out later on. Let's see, probably a century or two later. Did you have a question, Caden, or a comment?
There's kind of a question. Is that bridge is like overcrowded? I noticed from like my point of view. Doesn't look like there's like any railing on the side of it. If people fall into the water.
Yeah, and I don't know if we know for sure exactly what that bridge looked like, but yeah, you can see they're all in the center too. They're not over at the edge. That would, of course, they're not going in automobiles that are going 50, 60 miles an hour either. They're walking. If they're riding on a horse, they're not going that fast. So the likelihood of going over the edge would probably only be a possibility if you were drunk, I suppose. I don't know how else that would happen. Okay, interesting observation there, Katie. Now, these gates here, as I said, there were 100 of them, and there's been one that's been found that's intact. And this is a picture of it. You can see someone standing there, so you can see how big this thing is. And this is part of the gate of Ishtar, Gate 1, as you can see. This is how it would have looked within the fabric of the city. Someone drew this. So here's the gate, and here's, even coming into the gate, there are water walls on either side. So very heavily fortified. Joel?
The walls all weren't that colors though.
And I don't know about, it's not, the walls are not this color just because that's what they really were and this was blue. I don't think. I think it was colored this way so this would stand out so we would see it. The walls may or may not have been colored. I don't know the answer to that. But it's primarily so we can see how big that gate was and where it fit. And then here is the gate itself. I believe it's in the British Museum in London. That's where most artifacts of antiquity seem to end up. Great detail. Look at this. I mean, this is all made of brick, and these animals are standing out. They're not carved or drawn. They are fashioned in such a way that they stand out. You can see here. What is this?
The lion.
A lion. That's pretty obvious to see, right? What about this? This is a little harder, maybe. But what do you think that is?
Donkey.
Donkey, you think? I always thought the face kind of looked like a goat, maybe, but it's probably too long.
Yeah.
It's more like a horse-like face. And these look like hooves. But definitely an animal that they would have seen around, and even if we can't tell for sure. Okay, what about this animal?
A dragon.
The diamonds.
Oh, that can't be because dragons didn't exist, right? This must be a mythological creature they just made up. Well, that's what historians say, because they don't believe this creature actually existed, because it does look like some kind of dragon, doesn't it? See, it's scaly, and yet it's got paws, got the long tail, long neck. I would contend that if all the other animals on the Ishtar Gate were animals that they had seen and were copying, that this one probably was too. Why would they throw a mythological creature in among all the ones that they knew? That doesn't seem to make sense. So I think they actually saw this creature around. Okay?
It looks like a snake dog.
A snake dog, yeah. That might be how you describe a dragon.
When you say a dragon, you mean like dinosaur or like an actual like fire-breathing?
Well, we usually think of fire-breathing. We associate that with dragon because that's what's in a lot of our stories, a fire-breathing dragon. But they all weren't fire-breathing. If you read actual accounts that people wrote in contact with what you might call monsters or what they call dragons, they were different sizes and very seldom, as I mentioned, the fire-breathing. I think that's mostly our imagination in recent times have come up with that. And if you read a book like After the Fall by William Cooper, I think was who wrote that, he tells of even up into the Middle Ages, people seeing pterodactyls flying around, seen dragons in different places. The different stories about killing dragons are based on fact. And so these Babylonians knew that this creature was around, and so they built it into their gate. And here's another a model of the city of Babylon that someone built, and they built the Ishtar gate in. Again, with a dark blue color, makes it stand out, and maybe like Joel brought up, maybe the walls around it were just brownish. Maybe the gate was the only thing that was colored. We don't know.
Maybe their gates were color coded.
So you got a lot. Let's see, which gate do I go in? Oh, it's the green gate, not the oh, it's the blue gate. That would be wonderful if that was the case, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Man, Babylon's such a big city, 100 gates. Which one? Which one did we come in? Where did I park the donkey? I think it was the yellow gate. Okay. Interesting idea.
There's not 100 colors though.
What's that?
What?
There's not
Oh.
100 colors though.
Well, different shades.
That'd be too.
Okay, we don't have any idea if that's what they did. Probably not, so let's go on. The city of Babylon was very advanced. It had advanced further than civilization before. One example of this is this painting of a pharmacy in ancient Babylon. Can you tell what's going on here? Here's obviously a sick guy
Are they doing a
and
ritual?
his concerned wives. What's going on here?
They're making medicine
Yeah,
and killing sheep.
and killing. Oh yeah, we got. I don't know whether that's for a sacrifice or whether maybe they're getting the sheep liver out to do something with it. I don't know. Okay, so you got a sheep there. You've got looks like some kind of berries or something here. Anybody know what this is called?
Powder.
Horse
You
rat.
grind. It's called a mortal and pestle. So you grind it up and then put it in a jar. Maybe mix up some water. He drinks it. Looks like he is offering it to the gods maybe before giving it to him. Either that or he's trying to help me. I don't know what to do. I only went 2 years of medical school. Whatever. But they did have advancements in medicine. Let's talk a little bit about the religion of Babylon. You can see here some of the pictures of the gods, and some of them sound familiar. Enlil we've seen before. Marduk is particularly specific to Babylon. Ishtar we've seen before. So a lot of these gods are the same as what we've always had. Sometimes the names change, sometimes they don't. Down here in the bottom we see the symbols of some different gods. Here's the god called Sin. That doesn't mean he's evil. That's just our word, Sin. It's a different word. Shamash, there's Ishtar again. Here's a drawing of Babylon. And you can see its location then, on the map. Here's a model that someone made of the Marduk sanctuary. Of course, this is a ziggurat tower. The sunlight coming in all of a sudden has made it difficult to see. But you can see stairs on the right side. There's a ramp going up so that you can accommodate a lot of people bringing their sacrifices. Does that help? Here it is in relationship to the rest of the city. It's near the walls, so people coming in this gate apparently could just go right to the ziggurat, the tower. Here's a drawing in a book that I found that puts people in the picture. See them going up the steps. And that must be Marduk. One of the things that occurs during Nebuchadnezzar's reign is that he marries a princess from the area of Media, the Medes. Remember that Media was on the border of the northeast border of Babylon, and of course there's always possibility of conflict over an area you haven't conquered. So what's the way you try to mitigate conflict? You try to make it so that conflict doesn't occur, so that you're not attacked through marriage, right? So he married the princess. So that brought peace between Nebuchadnezzar and the Medians. Well, the area where this princess lived was a mountainous area, and it had a lot of forests. It was beautiful. And as she was living in Babylon, she missed that greatly. So Nebuchadnezzar didn't want her running home to daddy all the time. And so he built a Median forest mountain for her right there in Babylon. Now, there are a lot of different artist renditions of this, but this one I like the best. I'm not sure if it's the most accurate, but I think it's the prettiest in a way, because you see the levels, for the mountains, you see waterfalls, water coming down, and a lot of plants growing there. And so he built that in order to accommodate his wife, so she could enjoy her homeland right there in Babylon. And this was declared by the Greeks as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. So it was quite a task for him to build. Kate, did you have a question?
I was just gonna ask where that big thing is in the back of the picture.
Back here?
That ball.
Oh, here. It looks like a dome, doesn't it? I'm not sure. From the picture, it looks like it's a dome and it's got columns. So that may have simply been an area that was shaded. I don't know. Or maybe it increased the sun coming through. Yeah.
How did they get water to the top to come down in the waterfalls?
Don't know. Maybe they didn't. Maybe this artist just came up with something that's impossible. I don't know. Actually, there were some young ladies that all day long were down here with pails, and they would walk all the way up, dump it out, and then come back down with pails.
That's cool.
That would be the only solution I would have. I'm sure that Nebuchadnezzar had a better one. All right, let's review a little bit what we've been seeing. So we've got Abraham entering Canaan, coming from what city, everybody? From what city did Abraham come? Ur. Jacob, his grandson, then moves the family to Egypt, following which of his sons?
Joseph.
Moses then leads them out of Egypt in the Exodus after they were enslaved for how many years? 400. 400 years. Moses dies before they enter the Promised Land, so Joshua takes them in, beginning with the fall of Jericho. And after Joshua dies, we enter a period of the Judges, where everyone, what?
Did right was in his own eyes.
Right, exactly, good. So they ask for a king, so God gives in, says, okay, I'll give you a king. And who's the first king?
Saul.
Okay, good. Oh, we're getting some voices now. Who is the second king?
David.
Who is the third king?
Solomon.
Good. And when Solomon died, the kingdom was divided. Suddenly my tablet came on and started hearing something that we said and was looking it up. Started telling me about David. I don't know why.
The government's spy. The government's watching.
Yes.
They're
Saul
going.
always sounded like Siri.
What's that?
Because we said Saul, and then I thought we said Siri.
Oh, I don't have Siri. I don't think. I don't know. All right, let's get back to this. The northern kingdom that separated was called what?
Israel.
Israel.
Only 2-3 people knew that. The northern kingdom was called Israel, and the capital was
Samaria.
and the first king was
Rehoboam.
Jeroboam.
Jeroboam.
It's alphabetical.
Knew that.
The southern kingdom was called
Judah.
Judah. Capital was, and the first king, or the king of after divided was Rehoboam. Okay. Now, so next, I forgot we were going through this. So we know that Israel falls in 722 to what kingdom? Assyria. And they capture a lot of people, relocate them. And then later, Judah finally receives the judgment of God in 606 when Babylon comes in under what leader? Nebuchadnezzar. And when he invades Judah, eventually, after 3 visits, it totally falls, which includes the destruction of the temple and the destruction of the city of Jerusalem. Now, he also took a bunch of people out of Judah back to Babylon, primarily people that were really important. That means if they were important people, they also owned a lot of land. So when they're taken back to Babylon, suddenly there's nobody living in some of those areas and some of that land, controlling some of that. So what happened? Some of the people that were living there began to come in and take over. And they began living on other people's farms and houses. Well, the people in Babylon who owned those places heard about it, and they were upset. What are you doing moving into my house? You know, what are you doing taking over my farm? So that caused some difficulties. Now, there was an area of central Judah that nobody moved into the vacant areas. And so that left it wide open for an invader. And that invader were the Edomites. Now, the Edomites had lived over in this area, but now they move over into here and start to control the area just south of the Dead Sea. And now it's called Idumea. Instead of Edom, which it was here, the name changes to Idumea, or becomes Idumea, and as it's given up here. So here's the area that they control then, the Edomites or Idumea, and it's quite a large area. Because there's no one there, they just kind of move in. Now, one of the things that happens during this time in as Judah is in captivity in Babylon is that there has to be somebody ruling in Judah. And so the Babylonians left the internal rule of Judah in the hands of a guy by the name of Gedaliah, who was the son of Ahikam, and he ruled from the city of Mizpah. He's not ruling from Jerusalem. Why?
Because it's gone.
It's gone, right? However, he was murdered by a bunch of hotheads, and out of fear that Babylon was going to come in now and Nebuchadnezzar was going to come a fourth time, there are a lot of people that live there that say, we better skedaddle before we get destroyed by Babylon. And so a bunch of Jewish families ended up moving to Egypt. That's found in 2 Kings 25 and Jeremiah 40 to 44. When they moved to Egypt, they found some places they could live, and they founded military colonies there. And that's even known through the time of the Persians later. The Persians in their records have this. All right, so in Judah, however, the land and destroyed settlements were occupied sometimes by Jews that were left, but part of it was occupied by the Edomites or the Idumeans that came in from the south. Most of the exiles living in Babylon settled in scattered agricultural communities. So in other words, they scattered around, and so they had farms over there that they could cultivate. That's what they knew how to do. They preserved their spiritual and religious heritage and kept thinking about the time when they would return to the Promised Land. That was their hope, that someday they would return. And in fact, Jeremiah tells them that. Jeremiah tells them, look, I know you're in captivity. It's time to start whining about it and realize that God has said you're going to be here for a while. So while you're here, work your hardest, do your best, and pray for Babylon. What? Pray for the people that have captured us, that have destroyed our city and our temple? Yeah, Jeremiah points out, because if Babylon's successful, you'll be successful. And in 70 years, God will send you back. That's the context of the verse that we so often hear today, Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, the plans for hope and a future. That was what was given to these exiles in Babylon, because they thought their future was over. They thought there was no future. The temple's gone, the city's gone, and now we're in a different place. Jeremiah says, no, God has a plan for you. That was the hope. All right, so they have that. They also had the visions of Ezekiel, who was exiled to Babylon, along with Jehoiachin. And he had visions, especially in chapters 47 and 48, that talk about the Holy Land being distributed among the 12 tribes again. Now, one of the things that occurs during this time period concerns 3 young men that were exiled along with Daniel in the first exile. Do you remember who they were? Yeah, okay, good. You know the names. Those are their Babylonian names, by the way, not their Hebrew names. And what happened to them? Are you going to answer that, or do you have a question? Yeah.
What are the Hebrew names?
I don't remember. I remember the Babylonian names because I learned a song. that has. Do you guys know the song about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego?
People in the movie.
All right, what happened to them? What happened to those three guys?
You got
Lexi, you know? What? They were in a furnace? Were they furnace repairmen? Working on the AC?
They were
And then
burning, but they weren't.
they were burning, but they weren't burning. This is something crazier all the time, Lexi. All right. Remember, Nebuchadnezzar built a statue of himself, and he wanted everybody to worship it. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, no, we're not going to do it. They blew the trumpets. Everybody bowed down. There's three guys still standing. Maybe you didn't hear the music. Play it again. No, still didn't do it. We won't get through the whole story, but eventually, what happens?
They were taken to be burned in the fire furnace, and all the soldiers are getting like putting them in because it's so hot. When they get in there, they're not going. Nebuchadnezzar like sees what a figure inside of it, and it's the angel of the Lord, which is a Christophany. So,
Right. Okay, very good. She told the whole story right there. So they get thrown into the furnace, and it's so hot that even the guys throwing them in the furnace die. So picture that. You know, can you imagine you're Shadrach, Meshach, or Abednego? You know, this guy's got a hold of you. He's throwing you in, and you're thinking, okay, that's it. He dies, but you land inside the furnace, and you're okay. Oh, hey, I'm okay. Hey, the ropes fell off. Oh, hey, Shadrach. Hey, good to see you. See, you're okay too. Oh, and there's Abednego. Yeah. Hey, we're all three here together. Just walking around. Yeah. So what's been up with you? Hey, you know, my sandals aren't even burning. This is really cool. Wait a minute. Who's that? It's the Son of God. Hey, didn't expect to see you here. It had to be a great experience, right? And as Brennan said, Nebuchadnezzar looked in and said, hey, how many guys we throw in there? Yeah, that's what I thought. 3, right? How come I see 4? And that 4th guy. Something different about that one. He looks like the Son of God. That had to be a pretty amazing thing to see. Now, do you know the song? Do you know the song, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Nobody knows the song? Lexi, you know it. All right, Bill, you have a question?
Yeah. Why did they have a big fiery furnace?
As far as I know, just for this purpose. I don't know any other reason.
Do you think they got to turn dead?
Pardon me?
Do you think they got to turn dead and they went in?
You think Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? You know what they said to Nebuchadnezzar prior to him throwing them in? They said, we don't care what you do to us. Our God can save us, but even if he doesn't, we still won't bow down to your statue. So they said it can go either way. God can save us if he wants, but it doesn't matter.
Does Daniel bow down?
That's the question that we always have. Where was Daniel? Was he bowing down? So most scholars would say he must have not been in that town. He must have been somewhere else. Otherwise, you know, he wouldn't have bowed down. But he's not mentioned in this. All right, I will tell you the story in song real quickly. And so this will be in your memories, and you'll be able to sing it to your children someday, maybe. 3 good men lived very long ago, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. To an idol they would never bow, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Into the fiery furnace they were therefore cast. Nebuchadnezzar thought they'd never last. But God was there, he never let them go. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Have you heard that before?
No.
Well, now you have. Tomorrow, make sure that you follow the directions, reading Daniel 2 and 7, and fill in the chart of Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar's dreams, except for the interpretation. Don't do that work.